Hi everyone, Michael Smith here. What is reality? Why are we here? Why is there something rather than nothing? These are some of the most fundamental questions we can ask, but remain the biggest mysteries of all. Mysteries that have captivated me in recent years and propelled me into mathematics, numerology, sacred geometry, and physics in search of answers. What I discovered was a surprisingly simple model of reality that seems to provide those answers. A base 12 vibrational model that naturally emerges when we build a hypothetical universe from nothing but basic geometry and logical reasoning. This not only suggests how mathematics and numbers themselves emerge, but also consciousness, and that everything is simply love gaining awareness of itself through duality. It is this model of reality that convinced me of the validity of numerology, of numbers as vibrational qualities, and is what led me to adapt traditional base 10 Pythagorean numerology to base 12, and to explore physics through this vibrational lens. Although covered in depth in my other videos and books, I wanted to sum it all up in a short video here to show just how simple, logical, and unconditionally loving reality may fundamentally be. Hope you enjoy. First, we begin with nothing. A blank slate of pure possibility and timeless, dimensionless darkness. This is the primal essence of the number zero, of non-existence, neutrality, and potential yet to be realized. So, even at this initial state of non-existence, the number zero already conceptually exists as the quality of that neutral potential. So, nothing in terms of quantity is still something in terms of quality. And thus with it is born the idea of numerology, of numbers having qualities we can perceive, even if they cannot be physically measured. From nothingness would logically emerge a point as the simplest something that is possible, an infinitesimal spark of existence within a formless sea of non-existence, a fundamental energetic charge that is therefore no longer neutral. Thus is born the singular essence of the number one, of creation, self, and new beginnings, and with it the idea of form and geometry, the point being the simplest geometry of all. Yet for this singular point of reference to retain the neutrality of nothingness from which it emerged, it must manifest in partnership with its opposite, a second point that is opposite in charge and direction from zero, but otherwise identical, and together which ensure the 1 minus 1 equals 0 of their neutral origin. This is the geometry of the straight line, the linear horizon of the positive and negative real numbers, and therefore the mathematical operations of addition and subtraction, and the perception of sequence, of forward and backward time. This is the paradoxical essence of the number 2, of equal and opposite, of neutrality through polarity, relationship through separation, and balance through duality. This, I suggest, is also the reason for the existence of matter and antimatter particles, oppositely charged but otherwise identical. Why they're created as a pair from nothing, but their potential to exist, and why on contact they annihilate each other back into nothing with the release of that potential energy. The next logical step reality would take while ensuring neutrality is to rotate the real number line about its neutral midpoint, the origin 0. This creates the simplest possible circle, the unit circle of radius 1 and centered about the origin. This expands our universe from a horizontal one-dimensional line of sequential points in time to a two-dimensional plane of circular points in probability space, thus creating a vertical dimension as well. However, our path to get from one end of the real number line to the other, from +1 to -1, is now a circular one. This means passing through the unreal territory, above or below the real number line, or what are called imaginary numbers, and together with the real numbers, called complex numbers. But to do so in a rotational way requires the mathematical transformation of I² equals -1, such that each 90-degree rotation about the unit circle is equivalent to multiplying by I. So, to travel from 1 to -1, from one side of the circle to the opposite side, requires two 90-degree rotations. thus multiplying 1 by I twice, or I squared, to get to -1. In other words, imaginary probabilities become real manifestations through circular rotation about the origin, as a neutral point of reference. And only where the circle intersects the real number line, at either +1 or -1, is where a real point, or particle, so to speak, can manifest. Otherwise, both +1 and -1 remain in an undefined superposition of both possibilities, and the underlying reason, I believe, for superposition in quantum mechanics. This reveals the catalytic nature of rotation and how it requires multiplication to circumnavigate an otherwise straight line and division to rotate in reverse. A catalyst is that which causes change without changing itself, just as the rotation of our line into a circle did not change the line itself, or how changing the radius of a circle still results in a circle, albeit different in size. This is the transformative essence of the number 3, of creating something new without losing its original identity, of seeing the linear in a continuous way, of causing change through the changelessness of the catalyst. Yet, the unit circle as just described, of only the 4 points, 1, -1, I, and -I, offers reality little creative power. Called the base 4 circle in mathematics, it can only partition itself 2 ways, in half or in quarters. Although very simple and compact in size, base 4 would be far too limited a way for reality to express itself with any degree of variety or complexity. But what finer partitioning or base would provide reality the best compromise between versatility and size? First, that base must be divisible by 4 in order to retain the base 4 properties of our geometric universe as described thus far, including addition and subtraction by virtue of the real number line, and multiplication and division by virtue of complex number rotation. As such, base 8 and base 12 would be the next options. Base 8 can be factored 3 ways, in half, quarters, and eighths, while base 12 can be factored 5 ways, in half, thirds, quarters, sixths, and twelfths. The next larger base, more versatile than base 12, would be base 24 with 6 factors, however at the cost of much greater size and complexity. As such, base 12 would be the logical and most efficient structure for reality to follow. And nature provides plenty of evidence of this base 12 structure, from 12 orbits of the moon around the Earth per Earth orbit around the Sun, to the 12-year orbital cycle of Jupiter, the human body having 12 cranial nerves and 12 thoracic vertebrae, snowflakes being 12-pointed, and 12 fundamental particles in quantum physics, and subdivided into 4 groups of 3 by charge. Note how base 10, the current standard used worldwide, wouldn't even be an option for reality, as it isn't a multiple of base 4, and thus doesn't conform to the foundational structure of complex numbers. Further, base 10 is not even a very versatile system for its larger size, with only 3 ways of partitioning itself, in half, fifths, or tenths, versus 5 ways with base 12. The number circle is the practical essence of the number 4 of structure, of geometric order and stability, of the whole expressed through the sum of its parts, of the positive and negative, and real and imaginary in balance. Now, because every whole number is either a prime number that cannot be divided further, such as 2, 3, or 5, or a product of primes, such as 4 equals 2 times 2, 6 equals 2 times 3, or 10 equals 2 times 5, all we need to fully describe the base 12 circle are those positions where prime numbers can occur in any given cycle, these being 1, 5, 7, and 11. Positions 2 and 3 are also prime, but only in the very first cycle, essentially creating the base 12 structure itself. 2 times 2 times 3 equals 12. It is therefore through prime positions 1, 5, 7, and 11 that the base 12 cycle is expressed into reality. As these 4 prime positions are equivalent to vectors of lengths equal to their number values and pointing away from the origin, Any pair that's opposite each other subtracts to a single vector of their net length. As such, vectors 7 and 1 subtract to a net vector of length 6, pointing towards position 7, while vectors 11 and 5 subtract to another net vector of length 6, pointing towards position 11. Thus, the base 12 circle can be fully described by prime positions 7 and 11 alone, and thus represents the simplest way of describing reality in terms of that geometry. We also see that it's here that reality's structure, though symmetric in form as a base 12 circle, becomes inherently asymmetric in expression, the 7 and 11 prime vectors being biased towards the bottom of the base 12 circle. This therefore imparts an asymmetric polarity or charge ratio to the circle of positive 2/3 above and minus 1/3 below, such that the total polarity range equals 1 or 100% in terms of probability. As the vertical axis is the imaginary axis I of the complex unit circle, this plus 2/3 minus 1/3 charge ratio would be perceivable by an observer looking from the side of the circle. Likewise, to perceive the horizontal real axis from above requires a 90-degree rotation of the observer's perspective relative to the imaginary axis. As this 90-degree rotation is equivalent to multiplying I times I, where I squared equals minus 1, this imposes a charge ratio of minus 1 and 0 to the real axis, again such that total polarity range equals 1 or 100%. This, I suggest, is a reason for electromagnetism, why the magnetic and electrical planes are 90 degrees to each other, and why their particles possess the plus 2/3 minus 1/3 and minus 1, 0 charge ratios they do. Next, the simplest expression of the static base 12 prime circle is to be in motion, to rotate as a cycle about its origin. However, rotation in one direction would not have the neutrality of motion. This is depicted by the directional arrow between positions 7 and 11. This is the dynamic essence of the number 5, of action, motion, and change. So, to ensure that neutrality, reality would express the base 12 prime cycle in a bidirectional way. Envision a rotating coin such that both sides are visible, where any point on its perimeter will appear to rotate clockwise on one side and counterclockwise on the other. And like flipping a coin, there is a 50% chance of each side showing up. As such, both sides together represent all 100% possible outcomes. This rotational polarity of the circle therefore introduces another level of duality to reality beyond the positive-negative linear polarity of the real number line, that being the duality of oscillation. This brings us to what I believe is the sixth and final logical step in reality's manifestation of something from nothing, of expressing the base 12 prime cycle over time as a vibration. As the base 12 prime cycle is a two-dimensional structure existing outside of time, essentially rotating about the origin into the page, the introduction of time adds a third dimension perpendicular to that cycle and creates a three-dimensional double helix vibration that we perceive as space-time. Likewise, the bidirectional oscillation of the cycle results in that double helix vibration being a bidirectional standing wave, essentially oscillating both forward and backward in time, though appearing to stand still as a fixed pattern. The same standing wave pattern of atomic structure, DNA, electromagnetic fields, and spiral galaxies, and which suggests our universe is one half of a cyclical universe pair. In this picture, forward time moves left to right along the blue sine wave through 12 quantum positions of matter, while backward time moves right to left along the orange sine wave through 12 antimatter positions. As such, the base 12 cycle represents the side view of the prime vibration, shown here to the left, with all 12 of its rotational positions depicted by colored arrows matching their resulting geometries within the prime vibration. Also shown at the bottom are the 12 vibrational qualities, or numerological themes described by those geometries. In particular, their proportional amplitude, polarity, and direction of spin, and the very same properties which define the 12 matter particles in quantum physics. Though symmetric in form left to right and neutral in charge overall, we see that the base 12 prime vibration is not symmetric vertically, again by virtue of the offset location of positions 7 and 11 within the base 12 cycle. This causes the vibrational geometry of position 6 to fall below the reality axis at the very heart of the waveform, and thus hidden from view beneath a literal black hole of imperceptibility. As the intersection between opposite polarities and a timeless still point of connection with its arrow pointing directly towards us, position 6 is the very geometry of love and just as elusive to fathom, as is the black hole at the heart of a galaxy, the nucleus of an atom, the ground state of the zero-point field, or the point of conscious awareness within each of us. All fractal expressions, I believe, of the same fundamental base 12 prime vibration, as is everything else in the universe. Note too a further local asymmetry in the shape of each quadrant of the prime vibration, resembling half of a wing. At the universal scale, the physical universe we experience would be the upper left quadrant of matter shaded in blue and moving forward in time from 0 to 5, and its antimatter counterpart being co-created in the quadrant below shaded orange and moving backward in time from 6 to 11, while our opposite anti-universe would be the upper and lower quadrants on the right. So, the cosmic cycle of our universe proceeds in a geometric way from a point singularity at 0 with a big bang of inflation to the singular geometry of 1, and thus the creation of singular particles, to the 2-to-1 ratio of position 2, with the formation of protons and neutrons from positive and negative quarks according to that ratio, to the maximum expansion and neutrality of space at position 3, and thus the combining of positively charged protons with negatively charged electrons to form stable, neutral atoms. Then, the universe reverses the process and contracts space from 3 to 6, the atoms separating back into protons and neutrons at 4, into singular quarks and electrons at 5, and finally into the singularity of the black hole at position 6. However, we see that the start of the universe cycle from 0 to 1 is strictly shaded blue for matter and only rebalances with the orange region of antimatter by the end of the cycle at position 6. This initial imbalance of matter over antimatter therefore would explain why all physical matter, including us, exists at all. Otherwise, all matter would have been immediately annihilated by antimatter, and the universe would be impossible. And because the 6 of love falls beneath the reality axis, the 0 of potential and the 12 of cycle completion rise above to ensure neutral symmetry overall. So where 0 is love's potential, 6 is love realized, and 12 is love fully experienced. Thus, it is through the rest of the base 12 themes that we navigate love through vibrational polarity and contrast, searching for love from 1 to 5 and understanding love from 7 to 11. So, in the same way that all colored frequencies of visible light combine to the clarity of white light, all 12 vibrational themes of the base 12 prime cycle bring us the clarity of conscious illumination. And in the same way that all possible colors of light can be produced by just the 3 primary colors of green, blue, and red in varying proportions, all of reality is created by the 3 primary themes those colors represent: love, awareness, and duality. In other words, love gaining awareness through duality is the fundamental nature and purpose of reality. So, it seems reality may actually make love out of nothing at all, to quote a song from the 80s. And if the base 12 prime vibration is indeed the structure of reality, love is inevitable. If so, love is the ultimate answer to those big existential questions we started with, and the source and destination of all that we are. And importantly, this was a conclusion we arrived at, not through romantic metaphors, religious preconceptions, or scientific biases, but rather the simple objective logic of geometry and number. And through that neutral perspective, we realize that science and spirituality are actually two indivisible sides of the same coin, only together through which reality can be fully understood. That's exactly what I've discovered in my own journey from skeptical engineer to spiritual seeker, only to realize I was meant to be both all along. Spirituality seeks truth, and physicality seeks proof. And since you're watching this, you realize this at some level too. And isn't it interesting how our entire creation story here is nothing more than discrete points of perspective and their geometric relationships to each other, relationships which preserve the neutrality of zero every step of the way. Through this neutral lens, everything we consider to be physical reality, including matter, space-time, and numbers themselves, are just perceived phenomena which emerge from these most basic of relationships. So too are all the emotions we feel, the physical spiritual duality we experience, and the consciousness to even perceive it at all. And this is why I believe systems such as base 12 numerology and astrology are so accurate in measuring our vibrational resonance with the outside world and the outside world with us. They are measurement tools specifically designed for the base 12 cycle and the 12 vibrational themes through which that cycle plays out. And because they take a snapshot of our numbers and the solar system at a specific point in time and space, such as our time and place of birth, they serve as an observer collapsing the wave function of our physical spiritual duality, so to speak, into the specific quantum themes in effect at that very moment in our lives. So to me, this fundamental idea of neutrality through duality, of something from nothing, means everything. Everything is both geometry and number, wave and particle, energy and matter, quality and quantity, thoughts and things. And unconditional love is the equal sign between them all. That's how I see it anyway. Thanks for watching.